safe to say that we have, as humans, have a love-hate relationship with books. Whenever I talk about books on my Instagram or social media in general, I get people saying, I haven't read a book in years and I really want to get into it. I have some that say, I just cannot read books, I prefer audiobooks. Some that say, I absolutely love, I cannot go without a book in my hand. It's just one of those things. I feel like we know that it's good for us, but it's just finding the time and making it a priority is just tough, I would say. And speaking of priority, I know that reading is important, and we all know this. We all know that children that read have a much higher, much greater vocabulary and are able to do a lot better at school, even, you know, in other subjects, because they read really well. Reading is so fundamental for us, for our own growth, you know, for learning and even for fun. It depends on what you read, obviously, then there's no limits on what you read. But I feel like I kind of fell out of love with it a little bit for the past year. And I would say that's because, you know, you may or may not know that I have a 1-year-old. I gave birth last April. So it's been about 1 year and a half now, and I just told myself that I didn't have time. I just said to myself, you don't have time to read. You know, on a commute, on a journey, there's no time to read. I can't read, I need to focus on my child. At home, the last thing I want to do is sit down with a book. I need to like cook and clean and whatever, and it's just so difficult. I just told myself I had no time, essentially. But past few months, I've just gotten sick of not reading. I felt like I was missing something, and I got sick of sort of just looking at my phone and just being glued to screens, and I just wanted some time away from that. And so I told myself that reading is a priority. I told myself that you need to change that mindset from I don't have time to, well, it's not a priority for you, so you're not going to make time for it. And I think I read that quote somewhere not too long ago saying that if you change I don't have time to it is not a priority to me, it reframes that mindset a little bit, because actually it is a priority to me and I do want to make time for it, but actually I just wasn't. And so by changing that mindset and telling myself you need to make it into a priority, I found ways in which you wouldn't even imagine to be able to read. So what I did was I told myself that wherever you go, whatever it is that you're doing, you're gonna have a book at hand. So even if you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes here or there waiting for something to dry, waiting for some, like waiting for my son to wake up, whatever it is, rather than sitting and just doing a quick 5-minute scroll on your phone, pick up a book. And this has changed so much for me in just the past couple of months. And I think lots of us will find this really helpful, whether you're a parent or not. Just having those 5 minutes makes such a difference, and you can actually read quite a few pages in 5 minutes. I used to tell myself, well, if you don't have an hour to read, then it's not enough time. That's the biggest lie ever. It's the biggest excuse to yourself ever. You have more than enough time. But anyway, I just thought I'd preface this with how I was feeling, and, you know, kind of telling you that actually to be able to read, all you need to do is have 10 minutes at hand, 5 minutes at hand, which we all have in different, you know, during different parts of the day. So pick up, this is your message, this is your cue, this is your sign to get a book, keep it in your bag, keep it somewhere that you can actually read wherever you are, and you'll find that you can squeeze 5 minutes in here and there. So anyway, I thought I'd share with you guys what I'm currently reading. So I've been reading these books since around, I would say, August, September now, and I'll probably also kind of finish them off in October. So these are the 5 books that I'm going to be showing you guys today. I've been sort of sharing some extracts on Instagram, and so many of you guys have asked me for the title of it, what do you think, do you recommend it, etc. And I'm gonna go through them all today. So I'm gonna start with the first one, and the first one is The Silent Guides. It's called The Silent Guides, and it's by Professor Steve Peters. You may have heard of the book The Chimp Management. I actually have it there. It's called The Chimp Management Mind Model, and it's essentially separating the human from the chimp, which is the part of your brain that's regulated by emotion as opposed to sort of thinking and doing things like logically and sort of based on, you know, your morals and your beliefs and what you know is right. The chimp is sort of the thing that you have to control a bit. I came across this in Waterstones, or I can't remember where it was recently, but in a bookshop. I was like, I haven't seen this before, because this is actually the child version. So it's how to understand and develop children's emotions, thinkings and behavior. So it's the version that is about children. So their chimp is underdeveloped, of course, because they haven't had time to think, well, if I react like that, that's not a good way to react, that's not a good way to behave, that's something that we don't do in society, outside, whatever. They're undeveloped, they're immature. Just understanding that, let's say a child was to break your favorite vase or whatever, in your head you're thinking, why would they do that, they're so naughty, but actually they don't know that that is something precious. They don't know that it could have been an accident. They don't know that that's something to stay away from. They don't have the spatial like recognition and the physical kind of ability to maybe understand that if they walk backwards they'll hit something behind them. Like, there's so many things that their mind is undeveloped about. So it's our responsibility as a parent, as a carer, as a teacher, to teach them those things. So understanding that their chip is not developed yet. So while we think someone breaks something, it's on purpose. A child, it shouldn't be translated like that, because that can cause so many problems in later life, and who they trust and how they kind of perceive things and how they understand the world. And so it's actually really, really good. It talks you through like different habits that they learn. So there's one here, for example, like saying sorry, talking about your feelings, showing good manners, asking for help, learning to share. All of these things that, like I said, they don't understand. We understand it. They do not understand it. So it's not fair for us to react to a child in a way that we would react to another human, or in a way that we expect them to act. They don't know. They haven't lived life to know this. So yeah, I found it really useful. I've like tabbed a few pages, and you know, I'm quite conscious of the way that I parent. I think it's really important that I look to how I was parented, how I was raised, and I appreciate it, but there's so many parts that I definitely don't agree with, and I definitely think I want to do differently. That's why I think it's important for me to read and understand like the science behind it. And the reason why I like this book, is I just mentioned, it's quite science heavy. It's written by a doctor, so it's not written by someone who is just a parent and giving you their advice, but actually it's based all on research, and all the papers and the journals are all at the back here, so you can actually go and look into it into more detail if you're interested. That's why I love it, and I'm already halfway, and I definitely recommend it. If you interact with children in any way, I'd highly recommend this. The next one that I haven't actually started this one yet, but I've only read this like literally a couple of pages, is The Unfair Advantage, and the business book, business kind of guide. It talks about how you can apply your unfair advantage to life, and it's written by two entrepreneurs who are actually British based. I love that, because a lot of the time you read these businessy books and they're American. I mean, it's fine, but I do like the fact that the references they make are like in pounds, and you know, British references. It's a bit more easy, like contextually a bit nicer to read. But yeah, so it talks about the unfair advantage. So things that we consider advantages regardless of what they are. So we have always been told that if you're from a certain race, certain group, certain whatever, you have advantages and everyone else is disadvantaged. In fact, there are terms like disadvantaged students or whatever, because they come from a certain area, etc. Actually, you know, there are disadvantages, obviously social mobility disadvantages, but we all have advantages that we can play up on. So that might be how tall we are. That means we are able to go into modeling, or we can go into like basketball or whatever. We can talk about the advantages that we have in terms of like academic ability. That's an advantage regardless of what background you come from, because you are able to go into a certain university, do a certain degree. That's an advantage. I have a YouTube channel and I've got a certain number of followers. That is an unfair advantage, because ultimately that means that if I launch a business or do something, I've already got backing that businesses with like lots of money can't even get. So that's an advantage. So just understanding like your unfair advantage and playing on that obviously in a morally correct way. I really do like this. So if you're someone who's interested in, you know what, I think it'd be interesting for anyone, to be honest, not even just someone who's interested in business. I think it's always good to know and understand that we are all have advantages regardless of what background we come from, regardless of what race or color we are. We all have advantages, and we shouldn't ever have that like victim mentality. Get rid of it. Okay, sticking to business, there's this book here that's called Contagious, and it is about how to build the word of mouth in the digital age. This is actually the only one that I haven't started yet of the ones that I'm going to be talking to you about today, so I'll probably bring it back next time, but I thought I'd bring it here today because I am reading it-ish. So I've heard a lot of people that talk about this that have like small businesses, startups, etc. So I thought it was a good book to pick up. And it talks a lot about how, you know, the attention economy and how products are able to spark up and become viral, or, you know, how we're able to bring stuff into the digital age and market them in a way that means that people are always talking about it. And I think as someone who has a business, even though it's not a product business, but it is still a business where I want people to be talking about it. I want people to say, oh, have you heard of the Page Doctor? They do X, Y, and Z. I want that. So how can I get that? How can I make that natural? And how can I allow that to kind of keep on happening through, you know, marketing or whatever it is that we do? I think this would be a really good book. Next is Becoming by Michelle Obama. I've mentioned this book before. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it is on my list of reading because I've read about a quarter of it so far, and then I had to return it back to the library, so I thought I would buy it so I don't have to keep returning it. She's so inspirational. Michelle Obama is so inspirational to me. I think she's definitely a woman that has her own standing. Like she has so much to offer aside from being the first lady. She has a law degree. She just has so much going for her that other first ladies are sort of like kind of, you know, they're next to their husband, the president, whereas she could run for the presidential elections herself. Like, she's so inspirational, so knowledgeable, and and it kind of gives me that, and a mother as well, and it kind of gives me that feeling of you can be a woman, you can have everything, you can have you can obviously, there's a lot of sacrifice that you have to give, but you know what I mean, like you can have motherhood, you can have a career, you can have fame, you can write a book, you can do so many things. It doesn't have to be one shoe fits all. And you know, she talks about the struggles as well, so she obviously isn't sugarcoating anything. She talks about having to leave meetings to go and look after her children or pick up her children or whatever, and I think it's important to have those both sides of that coin reflected. So I do really find it very inspirational. And then the last one that I'm reading, and I've mentioned before I think, is Working Hard, Hardly Working by Grace Beverly. It's a productivity book, so it's one of the books that I've been interested in from like Instagrammers, influencers, content creators that are starting to publish books about productivity. And she is an entrepreneur, she has her own business, graduated from university, grew up on the online space, and she talks about how to like work hard, also not work hard. So the tips that she can kind of give you guys on how to organize your time, how to be productive, how to think about your goals, etc. And I think, although like I think I mentioned this before, like it's nothing groundbreaking, you're not going to learn a brand new, I mean, if you read loads of productivity books, a lot of it is quite samey, but that's not a fault. I think, you know, lots of us use very similar techniques but in different ways. So she gives a twist on each of these techniques that you might have heard before that worked for her as maybe a student, as maybe someone who has lots of competing demands. And you know, I talk about loads of productivity tips as well, but I always give you my twist on it and how things work for me, because you know, one shoe does not fit all, definitely not in the productivity world. So yeah, I highly recommend this. I think if you're new to productivity and you don't really know where to start and there's a lot going on, I think this is definitely a good read. Even if you're someone like me who has read quite a lot of productivity books before, it's a nice refresher. As you can see, I've got loads of tabs here for points that I actually want to remember and come back to. So it's always something to learn, and yeah, I really like it. And you know, it's always inspiring to see how someone else does something, and I hope that I can write a book like this one day. So that's just putting it out there. But yeah, I hope that you guys found this helpful or interesting to some extent. These videos are quite chatty. Do let me know if you want to see them from time to time. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to do this every single week, but when I finish these, probably in October, towards the end of the year, I'll probably do another one updating you on what I'm reading now. There are some new books that I have purchased that are there that I haven't started yet. So when I get through these, then I will definitely share the next batch that I'm reading with you guys. Let me know if you've read any of these books and you'd recommend them, or like, you know, what you thought about them. And let me know if you have any recommendations, seeing as you kind of can see the assortment of books that I'm interested in. Let me know if you have any recommendations for books that you think I'd be interested in are similar to these. I would love for you to subscribe to my channel to see more from me. See you guys later. Bye.